Alright guys, I've got my Game of Thrones merch on, and you know what that means. It is time for this fortnight's review of House of the Dragon. Episode 7 and 8 of House of the Dragon. So while editing the last review video, I realised that the reason that I was struggling with the princess's name is because I thought it was like Rhaenyra or Rhaenyra. I was thinking neither of those are sounding right, and it's because it's Rhaenyra. I was just wrong. Nowhere near the right answer. So I apologise about that, and I will be calling her Rhaenyra from this point on. But let's get straight into the first episode that we're going to be talking about today. Episode 7, Driftmark. Episode 7 follows pretty much straight off the back of the past two episodes with Laena Velarion's funeral at Driftmark. This is a fairly, substantial episode for, the setting of it. Laena being a fairly minor character in the grand scheme of the main overarching story. So to have her funeral be the grounds for so much important stuff happening just seems a little bit of a weird choice from a viewer's point of view, in my perspective at least. Nevertheless, the funeral happens, then during the wake, Corlys Velaryon is talking to Luke, Rhaenyra's second son, that he will be the heir of Driftmark one day, and Luke's just like, I don't really want it. I don't know this place. Now is not a great time. I am a kid. And he's giving all those vibes off to Corlys. Aegon, Alicent's oldest, is just still spiraling down, being a terrible human being. Just getting drunk and falling asleep outside during the wake, just not being someone who is supposed to be a prince, part of the royal family, and on top of that, someone who his mum and grandfather are wanting to be the king. He's not acting the way that he should be acting to be the king, to be the next in line. And of course, there's that really weird sexual tension between Rhaenyra and Daemon, which has been building for the entire series, and it comes to a head in this episode because they finally sleep together. They go for a long walk on the beach and they find a little shipwreck and they sleep together. And for them it's great, but Rhaenyra is still married to Laenor, and it is days after Laena's funeral. It's the night of, so having all of that happening, and then on top of that, they're absent for a big event, which I'm about to get to in a second, which adds more underlying tension that's just going to be stacking up and stacking up and stacking up, looking like a meerkat there, into the next episode. The second major plot point is that Aemond Targaryen, the second son of Alicent Hightower and King Viserys, finally gets his dragon, and it was originally Princess Laena's dragon, Vhagar, who was one of the oldest dragon who currently living in this time, one of the ones from Aegon's conquest. And the reason this is such a big deal is because everyone was just assuming that Vhagar was going to pass down to one of Laena's daughters, and Aemond kind of stole that right from that girl. This leads to a huge scuffle between Aemond and Lucerion and Jacaerys, and it ends up with Aemond getting his eye cut, completely just gone, he lost the eye forever. This causes a huge row between the Targaryens and the Hightowers, and it ends in this big, huge argument between Alicent and Rhaenyra. And the king comes in, tries to settle it all, but it just doesn't work because he's like an old man now. He is really ill. He's not physically strong enough to command a room like he used to be. And the incessant hatred that these two women have for each other ends with Alicent trying to go for Rhaenyra, trying to kill the heir to the Iron Throne. Luckily, nothing happens. Everyone gets pulled apart from each other, and Alicent calls into question the legitimacy of Jace and Luke and Joffrey, saying that they are not Velaryons, they are Strongs, that they are all bastards, that they should not be inheriting the throne. And the king is just having none of it. He's just like, no, this is my daughter, they are true Velaryon blood, they are my grandsons, and I'm saying this now in front of everyone, as your king, as your father, as your husband, as your grandfather. He keeps saying grandsire. I'm just like, that's a weird phrase. I'm not going to start using that. But granddad, Rhaenyra and her children will be my successors. No more of this. And that kind of settles it. But then that's not the ending of the episode like you'd think it would be. Rhaenyra and Daemon have a little chat on a balcony and it's just like, I want to marry you. I want us to get together. We have now slept together and I want to be with you forever. However, I'm still married. So they hatch this plan to kill Laenor, and this is like just after Laenor's finally like become like, yeah, I'm gonna step up now. These are my kids. I know like they're probably not my like legitimate kids, but like I'm their dad legally speaking. I'm not gonna try and run away to fight in this war that's happening in the Stepstones. I'm gonna stay with my wife. I'm gonna stick by your side. I'm gonna be a good dad, like we promised all those years ago. I'm gonna do my duty. And it's finally like, nice, good on you, Laenor. Like, I know you're sacrificing your own happiness, but you're doing it for the betterment of these children. You're doing it because you know it's the right thing to do, which really like makes you go, oh yeah, go on, Laenor. Yeah, good man, good man. And then for that all to be taken away because Rhaenyra fancies her uncle is just like, come on. It was nearly happy. It was nearly good in some way. Then it's revealed that Laenor doesn't actually die, that they fake his death, so that he can run away with his boyfriend, partner, paramour. I don't know what the relationship is there. They never really explicitly say it. They say that they're like shagging, but they don't say like the specific details of it. So his partner, shall we say, they run off and have a happy ending together in Essos where they can be sellswords. He shaves his head. And it's just like, so that last scene with Laenor where he says that I'm going to do everything that you want me to do, I'm going to step up, I'm going to be a good man, that was all for nothing. That little bit, that character beat kind of falls flat a bit in hindsight. And again, this is going back to us not having enough time with these more side characters, with the likes of the Velaryons, with the likes of the Strongs. We're not getting enough time to get to know these characters well enough for this to be a, of course he's going to do this, kind of a move. But anyway, Laenor is presumed to be dead. His parents find a charred body and assume that it's him. He runs off, shaves his head to live a life in Essos as a sellsword, the kind of life that he wants to be living, a happy ending for him, which starts to pull cracks between the Velaryons and Rhaenyra and her side of the Targaryens. So moving into this next episode, there's more tension there, and Rhaenyra's side is looking a lot weaker, and Alicent's side is looking a lot stronger. Which brings me to episode 8, The Lord of the Tides. Episode 8, The Lord of the Tides, is a 6-year jump between the last episode and now, and Corlys has been fighting in the Stepstones, this war that the king has kind of been like, nah, it's fine. That's not a big deal. Don't worry about that. Corlys has gone fight there and he's sustained a huge injury to the neck, but this episode is all about the succession of the Velaryon line, because the succession of the Targaryen line has been like sorted, in the eyes of the king at least. That matter has been settled. So now we're on to the succession of the Velaryon line, where Luke's legitimacy comes into question yet again. And Corlys' younger brother, Vaemond, is really wanting this throne. He's kind of been like a tertiary character. He hasn't had many lines in the previous episodes. He's just been there like as an extra Velaryon to kind of like fill out the scenes a little bit. But now he's finally stepping up to the plate and going like, no, I know that my brother wanted the Velaryon name to carry on through history, but that's all he cares about. He cares about the history books. I care about the actual succession of my family. And I don't want some bastard, some illegitimate child to become the next Lord of Driftmark and of my home. And to an extent, I can see where he's coming from, because he knows the lands, he knows how to sail, because the Velaryons is all about shipfaring. And to have some kid who A, doesn't have any of his family blood, and B, has never spent enough time in Driftmark to learn how to navigate the ocean, never mind organise an entire fleet, for him to come in and to take that away from him kind of is a bit insulting. But at the same time, legally speaking, he is the rightful heir. So there's all of that tension going on there. The younger guys have gotten older. They've got a new cast as well. All of them for the new youngest generation are doing an absolutely stellar performance, every single one of them. Primarily Harry Collett and Ewan Mitchell as Prince Jacaerys Targaryen and Prince Jacaerys Velaryon technically, and Prince Aemond Targaryen, those two specifically are doing brilliant jobs in their roles, and they very much are leading the younger cast into the limelight of this show and are doing a stellar job at leading the younger cast. Except for one thing, Jace, when he gets angry, he kind of stands with his fists in front of him, and it just looks a little bit goofy. But other than that, every other part of their performances and the other younger cast are doing a amazing job, incredible job. Rhaenyra and her family finally come back to the Red Keep after the 6 years, after so many years have passed. They've been living on Dragonstone all this time. Jace has been learning Valyrian because he wants to do justice to his lineage. Yes, he's not a legitimate child, but he is Rhaenyra's biological child, so he does have Valyrian blood in him, so he wants to properly respect that and wants to do justice to that, which is an admirable thing for Kid to do, particularly for someone who knows that he's illegitimate, or like at least heavily suspects that he is so. They come back and they're seeming very passively not nice to each other. Like, they know that for the sake of King and for the sake of their parents, they don't want to embarrass themselves, they don't want to embarrass their parents, so they are being very passively aggressive to each other and being very political about how they are presenting themselves in the public eye. Everyone states their claim. Vaemond is says his piece about how has never spent any time in Driftmark, does not know how to navigate a fleet, and this is all happening to Otto Hightower because he's back as the Hand. And the reason it's Otto making the decision and not the King is because the King has just completely deteriorated in his health in the past 6 years. He is gone downhill, straight down. He is almost entirely bedridden. He is taking medicine which makes him essentially docile, no energy whatsoever. He can barely speak. But then the day of the hearing, the doors open suddenly and Viserys comes in and the big swelling music plays and it's a big yeah moment, and he comes in and he's tiny and his frame is just shrinked. And I don't know if they did it digitally or if they got a body double or if it is just Paddy Considine's performance, but he does just shrink, and he comes in wearing this mask, and he's had a bandage over his face in the past couple of scenes, and he comes in wearing this gold mask that covers half his face, and it looks pretty cool. It almost looks like the crab feeder from the beginning of the series, and I don't know if that was an intentional choice or if that was just coincidence, but it looks really cool. But he comes in with half of his face covered, he sits down and is like, I'm not going to have any of this. The legitimacy of these children has already been said, and well, we know what Corlys wants. He's been very open and very clear of what he wants about the line of his succession. He wants Luke to take the throne because that is the son of his son. Legally speaking, he doesn't really care about the legitimacy of the children. He just wants his name to succeed. Rhaenyra offers her sons to marry the granddaughters of Corlys through Laena's line, so then the Velaryons can still have that seat. To the king, it's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. That doesn't change anything because it's still going to be Velaryons on the throne either way. But to everyone else in court, they're just like, okay, cool, that's that settled. For everyone except for Vaemond. And he's like, no, I'm not having it. They're bastards. She's a whore. And I'm not going to stand for it. And I've got to say, Will Johnson does a brilliant performance in that scene. To be honest, he's been doing, everyone in this show has been doing a good performance all the way through, but Will did a really good performance in this episode. And his anger and his jealousy and his want for, in his eyes, justice really shines through in this scene. And he calls Luke that, not him, not them. That is not a Velaryon. Obviously speaking to his skin color and hair color not being anything close to what the Velaryon family looks like. And he says that is not a Velaryon. These two kids are bastards. And she's a whore. And the king gets really angry at that. And he's like, I'll have your tongue for that. And then suddenly, from behind, slash, Daemon just cuts Vaemond's head in half. Not decapitates him, cuts his head in half. Speaking of Daemon, there's actually a really, 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 really cute moment in this episode where when the king is struggling to get up to the Iron Throne, going up the stairs, one of the Kingsguard tries to help him. He's just like, no, I can do it myself. I need to be strong in this moment. And then he gets up the stairs, and after 2 steps up the stairs to the throne, he loses his strength and his crown falls off. And you see a hand pick up and thinking, oh, okay, he's picking it up. And then it cuts to Daemon. And it's a really touching moment. And again, Matt Smith plays this off beautifully. Throughout all of their disagreements and throughout all of their arguments, they are still brothers. And Daemon does still care about Viserys, and he does still want his brother to seem like the strong king that he is. So he helps him and he gets him up onto his throne, and there's this really, it's just a really nice moment. Then after the hearing, after all that gets settled, the family all have a meeting, all the Hightower side and the Targaryen, the Greens and the Blacks have a nice meeting together, have a nice meal together, and it starts off really, really bitter, and they're all toasting each other, and Aegon is constantly making jabs at Jace about not being able to get it up, not knowing what he's doing with a woman, all of that stuff. But then Viserys is like, enough is enough, you are my family, take it from an old man. He takes off that mask and to reveal the lack of an eye, and he's like, I am not the man that I used to be. I am an old, dying man. I'm not got much time left on this world, so not even as your king, just as your dad, your husband, your grandfather, he says grandsire again, for me, can we please have peace? And Rhaenyra is the first person to stand up and raise her cup to Alicent, saying how she's doing an amazing job with her dad, how Alicent has been genuinely really caring for Viserys, and how she really appreciates that, and then sits down, and then Alicent stands up and is like, we are both mothers, we like to pretend that we don't have a lot in common, but actually we probably do have a fair amount in common. I raise my glass to you. And they're all being very kind to each other, being very polite to each other, and it turns into a nice moment. Aegon tries to do one more jab at Jace, but Jace controls himself, and like the true king that he was being raised to be, he takes the high road and just like, and to you guys, I know we've had our issues, I cherish the memories from our shared childhood, and I hope that in adulthood we can continue to be friends. And then, a powerful move, he walks past his future wife and takes Aegon's sister wife and dances with her. And I'm pretty sure Jace, and I think her name's Helena, do end up being married together, and that's how the Dance of the Dragon finishes. That's how this whole story ends, is what I'm pretty sure happens. I could be wrong. It could be it could be another one of Rhaenyra's sons. It could be one of the younger ones, but I'm pretty sure that it's Jace and Helena who marry at the end. And to have those two dancing together, and you can see that they genuinely do enjoy each other's company. Like, they are genuinely good together. And you can see Viserys looking at them and looking at everyone, and it's just a really nice, tender moment, a very wholesome moment in what otherwise is a really bitchy show, for lack of a better phrase. And then Viserys goes to bed, and then Aemond stands up and says one final toast, and it's to the Velaryon boys. It's to Luke and to Jace, and to a lesser extent Joffrey. He's not there, he's not at the dinner because he's too young, but he's like, you are both talented, intelligent, strong boys. And he keeps using the word strong, and it gets them riled up, and eventually Jace just snaps. He can't take it anymore, which is understandable because he's young, and this is obviously a very sore subject for him. But the fight is done straight away because the guards step in and all the parents step in as well, and everyone's just like, Aemond, you shouldn't have said that. Even Alicent is like, Aemond, what are you doing? That's not on. We're trying to make peace here. So they all get sent to their bedrooms, and Alicent's just like, I'm really sorry, please stay the night. And Rhaenyra's like, no, I need to get the kids back to Dragonstone. However, I will ride back on Dragonback. And Alicent's like, ace. And I was sitting there going, where does this go wrong? How is this going to go wrong? This is so pleasant and so tender and so nice. Where is this going wrong? This is only going up. And this is where it goes wrong. Alicent tends to Viserys in his sleep and is notified by Viserys from something that he's saying. In his dying mumbles, he is taken back to a conversation he has earlier in the episode with Rhaenyra about the Song of Ice and Fire. And all through the series, I've been like, where is this going? How is this prudent to the story? Why do they keep coming back to this story that isn't going to like take into fruition until for years down the line, generations down the line actually? And it's finally coming to head here. In this episode, it's finally revealed why they keep coming back to the Song of Ice and Fire, back to Aegon's dream from generations ago. And it's because Alicent hears Viserys say, the prince that was promised, he's going to go to the north, he's going to protect us from the north, and it's through your line. And he thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra, but Alicent thinks he's talking to her. And he's like, it's you. You are the person who's going to save us. You must do what you need to do. And Alicent obviously takes that as, I need my son, Aegon, because that's the name he keeps saying, to become the king. and take the throne and save the world. And I think that's where he dies, because the last thing he says is my love, and I'm pretty sure that was his first wife he's talking to, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the end of Paddy Considine's time in the show, which means the last 2 episodes are going to be the actual conflict itself. So going into the series, I was like, oh, the Dance of the Dragons, amazing. I cannot wait for 10 episodes of the Dance of the Dragons, and we're getting 2. That's not anything bad on the show. They needed to build it up. I've been enjoying the build up personally. I know that it has been very slow and not much has happened, but they need this time to build it up. I still think they needed more time to build it up, but I've been enjoying the build up in time. My only issue is that I don't feel like there's been enough time given for the actual conflict. However, that's regardless, and we're talking about these 2 episodes. In a couple of weeks' time, I will talk about the series as a whole, but for now, these 2 episodes were fairly good, scattered with a couple of issues like I've been talking about, with not having enough time to get with the side characters, the whole thing with Laenor and his happy ending kind of not feeling earned. But other than that, I'm really happy with these 2 episodes. I've enjoyed them thoroughly, and I'm anxious to see how these last 2 episodes deal with the actual conflict of the Dance of the Dragons. But anyway, that's my time. I was sat cross-legged on my chair there, so I need to come up because I need to do my salute and see you guys and say that I'll see you guys later. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.